Become remarkable. This is our final example of how you can become a hero to the people who matter. In order to do so, we have to talk a little bit about my favorite topic, proctology. Where is he going with this? This is my hospital. This is BJC. It's part of Washington University Medical Center in St. Louis, Missouri. This is the chief of staff, Dr. Stephen Edmunowitz, my doctor. But nobody calls him that. No one calls him Dr. Edmunowitz, no one calls him Stephen. He's just Steve. That's it. And you want to talk about approachability, Steve has this down. The first time I went to see him, I learned something about customer service, or as they would call it, patient care, still customers. I noticed that every time I went in for a patient consultation, Steve would sit down. No big deal. Just sits down, always listening, maybe taking a note, or just kind of, figuring out what he can help me with. And two things happened. First, Steve told me that, Scott, in 30 years of practicing medicine, I've discovered the secret. If you want to be a hero, all you have to do is listen. But not just listening the way most people do. See, as a doctor, if you listen with your ears, the patients will give you their diagnosis. But if you listen with your heart, your patients will give you their cure. Who are you listening to? And what body part are you using to listen? The second thing I noticed, he's sitting down, and I'm thinking, okay, kind of no big deal, right? I look up in a medical journal, do some research, that doctors who sit down during their patient consultations are actually perceived to have been with the patient longer. UCLA, 2008. They did these studies of 12-minute consultations, and the patients where the doctor sat down, they thought it was a half hour. Huh, cool. Because you think how busy doctors are, and you think, well, they just want to get in and out and just see as many patients as possible and go get their free notepads from the guys. All he did was sit down. Interesting. But that's not why I wanted to talk about Steve. Steve did something with his nurses that changed my whole theory. Not only about service, not only about patient care, but what it means to be a hero. I missed something. Tell me later. So in 2005, I went in for a standard procedure many of you have probably heard of and or experienced called a colonoscopy. Colon cancer runs in my family. I was 25, had to get it done, part of the deal. Now, if you're not familiar with this, here's a video. No. But I'm not going to get graphic, but it's an invasive, vulnerable procedure. That's all I'll say. We were in the prep room getting ready, and I was like, wow, how long is that tube? So you start to freak out, because if you've never experienced this kind of thing, so my heart is racing, sweating, and Dr. Steve comes in, all the nurses come in, and I notice something different. Every one of them, on their scrubs, is a blue and white and red handwritten name tag, just like mine. And I start cracking up immediately. My blood pressure dropped like 40 points. I'm totally relaxed. And Steve comes over and says, now, Scott, I know this is kind of an approachable procedure. And I know you've never done this before. But we went out to Staples this morning. We picked up a few name tags that look like yours because we want to make sure that you're not the only one here wearing one. Right about then, the drugs kicked in. And that's all I remember. I wake up a couple hours later, kind of, post-anesthesia, you're sort of cloudy, and it came to, and I see the nurses, I see the doctor, and they're still there, still have the name tags on. But then I look closer. What? Their name tags have cartoon characters on them. So all the nurses were like Scooby-Doo, Snoopy, Garfield. Steve's name tag said Jamal. And now I start cracking up again, because not only did I not expect it, but they were having fun. I never would have expected to see this from one of the most prestigious hospitals in the country. So my question is, you guys tell me, what did Steve and staff do right? Did something different, they personalized it, anything else? It made you laugh, yeah. What else did they do? Let's get 5 more.
Make you feel comfortable.
You feel comfortable.
Created chemistry.
Care about you, sorry?
Chemistry.
Yeah, chemistry, anything else?
They empathized.
They understood you, they
Empathize.
right. Last one, they
Cared.
cared. That's it. And it sounds like a no-brainer. They cared as if there was some way to care. But that's all they did, is they dared to care. But And this is a big but. Like Oprah big.
Oh.
Yeah, I said it. Heroes, they don't bastardize caring into a technique. It's not something you can read a book on. Here are the 7 ways to care to make people... It doesn't work that way. That's not the nature of caring. It's too human of an act. What you can do, and we're going to look at some examples, it's about the willingness to care, it's the awareness of caring, it's the consistency with which you care. That's my suggestion, guys, is the easiest way to execute something remarkable is to stop doing something normal. I thought about this for your store, and I thought, well, what if at an Ultra store, let's say, I don't know, every couple weeks, or maybe on a regular basis, maybe you had a bookshelf that had books on relationships, or marriage, or romance. What if instead of only selling jewelry, you had a resource library? So that way, when the woman is picking stuff out and the guy wants to kill himself, he can go over there and he can read up. Are you providing a continuous flow of education? What if, at your store, you brought in once a month a fashion consultant? Now, you're probably not going to get Tim Gunn from Project Runway, but I imagine that whatever city you're from, there are hundreds of fashion consultants and designers or expert on wardrobe. They would love to come in and donate a couple hours of their time, maybe 11 to 1 or 11 to 2, one Friday a month. That way when people come in, they can say, you know, the hot fashion right now is this, and you know, I really like the way that watch is laying on your wrist. This is perfect. Green is the new color, and you can just get them to educate. Have you ever seen a store do that?
No.
Huh. Wonder what that means. What if, here's my last example, at your store, every Thursday or once a month, maybe Saturday mornings, you had a marriage counselor. Once again, there are hundreds of counselors and therapists and sex educators that would be happy to be there. Maybe not sex educators. They'd be happy to be there to offer themselves as resources. Now, instead of your customers buying the gift, you give the gift. You want to be a hero, make sure you're the one giving the gift. This counselor or whoever you bring in, that becomes a gift to add value. And that's the cool part, guys, is when rare becomes remarkable, remarkable becomes repeatable. When's the last time you told 200 strangers about your colonoscopy? Never. See, Oscar Wilde once said that the only thing worse than being talked about is... Who's talking about you? Let me ask you this. How is your store making the mundane memorable? A name tag. This is mundane. But I promise after today, you will never think of a name tag the same way again. Ever. Your